The key wouldn't turn at first. Sienna jiggled it in the lock, tired from the long flight home from her business conference in Atlanta. She'd cut the trip short by 2 days, eager to surprise Nathan. 3 years of marriage and she still got butterflies thinking about coming home to him. Or at least she used to. The door finally opened and the house was quiet. Too quiet. Nathan's car was in the driveway, so he had to be home. It was only 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday. He told her he was working from home this week, something about finishing a big project for his marketing firm. Sienna dropped her suitcase by the door and kicked off her heels. Her feet ached. The conference had involved too much standing, too much networking, too many fake smiles. All she wanted was to sink into Nathan's arms and forget about work for a while. She noticed Amber's purse on the hallway table. Her best friend since college. The woman who'd been her maid of honor, who'd held her hand through her mother's funeral, who'd celebrated every milestone with her for the past decade. Amber must have stopped by to check on Nathan like Sienna had asked her to. Sweet of her. Sienna walked toward the kitchen, thinking she'd make some tea. But then she heard it. A sound that made her blood run cold. Laughter. Nathan's deep chuckle mixed with Amber's high-pitched giggle. Coming from upstairs. From the bedroom. Her feet moved without her permission, carrying her up the stairs she'd climbed thousands of times. The stairs where she'd sat with Nathan on their first night in this house, drinking cheap wine and dreaming about their future. Each step felt like walking through water, slow and heavy and wrong. The bedroom door was cracked open. Just an inch. Just enough. Sienna stood in that doorway for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Time stopped. Her brain tried to make sense of what her eyes were seeing. Nathan, her husband, her partner, her best friend. Amber, her other best friend, her sister in all but blood. Together. In her bed. The bed she'd picked out. The sheets she'd washed last week before her trip. The room where she'd thought she was safe. They didn't see her. They were too wrapped up in each other, too lost in whatever this was. Sienna's hand went to her mouth, covering the scream that wanted to escape. Her other hand grabbed the doorframe to keep herself upright. The room spun. Her vision blurred. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare. She'd wake up in the hotel in Atlanta, and this would all be some terrible dream brought on by bad conference coffee and stress. But it was real. The sounds were real. The image was real. The complete destruction of everything she'd believed in was horrifyingly, devastatingly real. Sienna stepped back. One foot then the other. Moving in reverse like she could rewind time if she just backed up far enough. She made it to the stairs. Down the stairs. To the front door. Her hands shook so badly she could barely turn the knob. Outside the sun was shining. Birds were singing. The neighbor was mowing his lawn. The world was continuing like nothing had changed, like her entire life hadn't just shattered into a million pieces on the bedroom floor of her own house. She got into her car. Started the engine. Drove. She had no idea where she was going. She just knew she couldn't be there. Couldn't breathe that air. Couldn't exist in that space where everything she'd known had just died. Sienna ended up in the parking lot of a grocery store 3 miles away. She sat there, staring at nothing, feeling everything. The betrayal wasn't just Nathan's. It was Amber's too. The 2 people she trusted most in the entire world. The 2 people she'd have given anything for. The 2 people who'd apparently been giving everything to each other behind her back. How long had this been going on? Days. Weeks. Months? Had they laughed about her? Had they planned their secret meetings while she was at work? Had Amber sat with her last month, helping her pick out an anniversary gift for Nathan, all while sleeping with him? The questions came like waves, each one pulling her further under. Sienna's phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Hey babe, Amber stopped by. We're ordering dinner. Want us to save you some? The casual cruelty of it made her stomach turn. She couldn't respond. Couldn't form words. Could barely remember how to breathe. Another text came through. From Amber. Missing you? Can't wait till you're back. Girls' night soon? Accompanied by heart emojis. Sienna threw her phone onto the passenger seat. She couldn't look at it. Couldn't look at their lies. Their fake affection. Their manipulation. She'd given Nathan everything. She'd put her own career on hold when his business was starting. She'd supported his dreams, celebrated his successes, comforted him through his failures. She'd been faithful, loving, present. She'd been a good wife. No, she'd been a great wife. And Amber. God, Amber. They'd been friends for 12 years. Sienna had been there when Amber's father died. When Amber lost her job 2 years ago, Sienna had loaned her money, helped her with rent, spent hours updating her resume. When Amber had her heart broken, Sienna had sat up all night with ice cream and tissues and promises that better men existed. What a fool she'd been. What a complete and total fool. The sun was setting by the time Sienna finally stopped crying. Her eyes were swollen. Her throat was raw. Her chest ached like someone had reached in and squeezed her heart until it burst. But underneath the pain, something else was forming. Something cold and hard and sharp. Anger. No, not anger. Rage. Pure, clean, focused rage. They'd betrayed her. They'd lied to her. They'd made her feel crazy for the past few months when she'd sensed something was off but couldn't quite name it. They'd gaslit her, manipulated her, played her for a fool. But they'd made one critical mistake. One error that would change everything. They had no idea about the lottery ticket in her purse. The winning lottery ticket worth $500 million. The ticket she'd been planning to tell Nathan about on their anniversary next week. The ticket that was about to become her escape route, her revenge, and her new beginning all rolled into one. Sienna pulled out her phone and blocked Amber's number. Then she went to her bank app and checked the balance one more time. The money hadn't been claimed yet. Nobody knew. The ticket was still her secret. And it was going to stay that way. She started her car and drove toward a hotel downtown. Not home. Never that house again. That wasn't her home anymore. Home was supposed to be safe. Home was supposed to be where the people who loved you lived. That place was just a building where two liars happened to live. Nothing more. As Sienna checked into the hotel under her own name, using her own credit card, she felt the first tiny spark of something that wasn't pain. It wasn't quite hope yet. It was smaller than that. But it was there. A flicker of possibility in the darkness. She'd been destroyed today. Completely destroyed. But she was still here. Still breathing. Still thinking. Still capable of making decisions. And the decision she was making right now was simple. They wanted each other. They could have each other. But they'd never have her money. They'd never benefit from her success. They'd never know what they'd lost until it was far too late. Sienna unpacked her suitcase in the hotel room, hanging up her conference clothes, setting up her laptop on the desk. She ordered room service, even though she couldn't imagine eating. She ran a bath, even though she knew it wouldn't wash away the images burned into her brain. But she did these things anyway. Because she had to keep moving. Had to keep functioning. Had to keep existing even when existing felt impossible. Tomorrow she'd go back to that house. Tomorrow she'd face them. Tomorrow she'd start the process of destroying the life she'd built and creating a new one from the ashes. But tonight she just had to survive. And she would. Because underneath the pain and the rage and the heartbreak, Sienna was discovering something she'd forgotten about herself. She was strong. Stronger than she'd ever known. Strong enough to walk away. Strong enough to keep her secret. Strong enough to build something better. They'd broken her heart. But they hadn't broken her spirit. And that would be the difference between winning and losing this war they'd started without even knowing it. 3 days earlier, Sienna had walked into a convenience store near her conference hotel to buy a bottle of water. The Atlanta heat was brutal, and she'd just finished a particularly draining session on market analysis. Her brain felt fried, and all she wanted was something cold to drink and maybe a candy bar. The lottery machine by the counter caught her eye. Mega Millions. Jackpot at $500 million. She'd never played the lottery before. Nathan always said it was a waste of money, a tax on people who couldn't do math. But Nathan wasn't here, and something about the bright lights and the massive number made her pause. You feeling lucky? The cashier asked, smiling at her. He was an older man with kind eyes and a name tag that said Harold. I don't know, Sienna admitted. I've never played before. First time for everything, Harold said. Though I should tell you the odds are pretty bad. But someone's got to win eventually, right? Sienna pulled out a $5 bill. Give me 5 quick picks. Harold printed out the tickets and handed them to her with her change. Good luck, he said. Come back and tell me if you win. She'd laughed and stuffed the tickets in her purse, forgetting about them completely as she rushed back to the conference for her afternoon sessions. That night, she'd fallen asleep in her hotel room while reviewing notes, the lottery tickets buried under conference materials and business cards. The next morning she'd woken up to her phone buzzing with news alerts. Someone in Atlanta had won the Mega Millions jackpot. The entire jackpot. $500 million. Sienna had scrolled past the notification, more interested in checking her work emails than in lottery news. It wasn't until lunchtime, when she was eating a salad alone in the hotel restaurant, that she'd remembered the tickets. She'd pulled them out of her purse, thinking she'd checked them just for fun, knowing there was no way she'd won anything. The winning numbers were easy to find online. 7, 14, 21, 35, 42 and Powerball 12. Sienna had looked at her first ticket. No match. Second ticket. No match. Third ticket. One number matched. Fourth ticket. Two numbers. She almost didn't check the fifth ticket. Almost threw them all in the trash and went back to her salad. But something made her look. Some tiny voice in her head that whispered, just check. 7, 14, 21, 35, 42 and Powerball 12. Sienna had stared at the numbers. Looked at her phone. Looked at the ticket. Looked at her phone again. The numbers didn't change. They matched. Every single one of them. Her hands had started shaking so badly she dropped the ticket. It fluttered to the floor under the table. She'd scrambled to pick it up, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. Other diners were looking at her, probably wondering why this woman was crawling around on the floor of a nice restaurant. Sienna had gotten back to her seat, clutching the ticket like it might disappear if she let go. $500 million. Before taxes, but still. Even after taxes, it would be more money than she could spend in 5 lifetimes. More money than she'd ever dreamed of having. Her first thought had been Nathan. She had to tell Nathan. They were rich. They'd never have to worry about money again. He could quit his job if he wanted. They could travel. Buy that house they'd been dreaming about. Start the family they'd been planning. She'd pulled out her phone to call him, her finger hovering over his contact. But something had stopped her. A feeling she couldn't quite name. A whisper of caution. Their anniversary was in 10 days. She'd surprise him then. She'd have the ticket officially verified and claimed, set everything up properly, and then tell him over a romantic dinner. She could picture his face, the shock and joy and excitement. It would be perfect. Sienna had finished her lunch in a daze, barely tasting the food. She'd gone back to her hotel room and called the lottery office, asking about the claiming process. They'd told her she had 180 days to claim, and they'd recommended getting a lawyer and financial advisor first. She'd Googled attorneys in Atlanta who specialized in lottery winners and had set up a confidential meeting for the next day. That afternoon, while sitting through a presentation on digital marketing trends, Sienna's mind had been a million miles away. She'd been thinking about what she'd do with the money. Definitely quit her job. She loved marketing, but she'd always wanted to start her own business. Maybe a consulting firm. Maybe something in fashion. She'd have the freedom to figure it out. She'd thought about helping her sister, Teresa, who was struggling to pay for nursing school. About donating to the women's shelter where she volunteered. About all the good she could do, all the people she could help. She'd thought about Nathan's reaction. Would he cry? Would he scream? Would he pick her up and spin her around? She'd smiled to herself during the presentation, earning a confused look from the colleague sitting next to her. The next day she'd met with the attorney, a sharp woman named Beverly who'd handled several lottery winners before. Beverly had been all business, explaining the claiming process, the tax implications, the importance of privacy. I always recommend that winners claim through an LLC or trust, Beverly had said. It keeps your name out of the press. Protects you from people coming out of the woodwork asking for money. Trust me, you'll want that protection. Sienna had agreed immediately. She'd set up the LLC with Beverly's help, naming it something generic that couldn't be traced back to her. The process would take a few days, but Beverly assured her everything would be ready before Sienna flew home. Beverly had also referred her to a financial advisor who specialized in sudden wealth. You'll need a team, Beverly had explained. A good accountant, a financial planner, maybe even a therapist. Sudden wealth can be overwhelming. It changes everything. Sienna had taken notes, asked questions, tried to absorb everything. It all felt surreal, like she was playing a part in a movie rather than living her real life. $500 million. It didn't feel real. Even holding the ticket in her hand, looking at the matching numbers, it didn't feel possible that this was actually happening to her. That night, she called Nathan just to hear his voice. They talked about his day, her conference, their plans for the weekend. Normal things. Regular life things. He'd sounded tired, stressed about a client presentation. She'd almost told him then. Almost blurted out that he'd never have to worry about difficult clients again. But she'd held back. The anniversary surprise was too perfect. Just 10 more days. She could keep the secret for 10 more days. I love you, she'd said before hanging up. Love you too, babe, he'd replied. Can't wait till you're home. Sienna had gone to sleep that night feeling like the luckiest woman alive. She had a husband she adored, a best friend she could tell anything to, a career she was good at, and now, impossibly, enough money to make every dream come true. She'd had no idea that in less than 72 hours, everything she thought she knew would be destroyed. That the husband she loved would be in bed with her best friend. That the life she'd been so happy in would reveal itself to be built on lies. If she'd known, would she have claimed the lottery differently? Would she have told Nathan right away? Would she have confronted Amber about whatever was going on? But she hadn't known. She'd been completely blind to the betrayal brewing in her own home. She'd been thinking about anniversary dinners and surprise reveals and happy tears, while Nathan and Amber had been planning something very different. Now, sitting in her hotel room the night after discovering their affair, Sienna pulled the lottery ticket from her wallet. She'd kept it with her constantly since winning, too paranoid to leave it anywhere. It was just a piece of paper, but it represented everything. Her future. Her freedom. Her revenge. Beverly had texted earlier that day. The LLC was set up. Everything was ready. All Sienna had to do was come to the lottery office with the ticket and her identification, and the money would be hers. Well, it would be the LLC's, but same difference. She controlled the LLC. Nobody else. Nathan didn't know about it. Amber didn't know about it. Nobody knew except Beverly and the financial advisor, both bound by confidentiality agreements. Sienna held the ticket up to the light. Such a small thing to hold such power. She thought about what Beverly had said. It changes everything. Beverly had meant it as a warning, but right now Sienna heard it as a promise. Everything was already changed. Her marriage was over. Her friendship was over. Her life as she'd known it was over. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe she'd been living in a fantasy, and this was reality finally crashing in. Well, if reality wanted to crash in, she'd give it a spectacular show. She'd claim the lottery. She'd divorce Nathan. She'd cut Amber out of her life completely. And she'd build something better than what she'd lost. Something real. Something that couldn't be taken away by lies and betrayal. Tomorrow she'd face them. Tomorrow she'd start the process of leaving. But tonight, she'd hold this ticket and remember that she wasn't powerless. She wasn't just a victim. She had options. She had resources. She had the ability to walk away and build a life they couldn't touch. They'd betrayed her. But they'd also set her free. They just didn't know it yet. Sienna stood outside her house at 9 in the morning. She'd been up since 5, unable to sleep, planning what she'd say. She'd rehearsed it in the shower, in front of the hotel mirror, during the drive over. But now, standing here with her hand on the doorknob, all her practiced words disappeared. She'd texted Nathan last night. Coming home tomorrow. We need to talk. He'd responded with a simple okay, nothing more. Had he sounded nervous? Guilty? Or was she reading into it? The door was unlocked. She walked in to find Nathan sitting at the kitchen table with coffee. He looked up, and for just a second she saw something in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? It was gone too quickly to identify. You're home early, he said, stating the obvious. I came home yesterday, Sienna replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Around 2 in the afternoon. His face went pale. The coffee cup in his hand trembled slightly. Yesterday? I saw you, Nathan. You and Amber. In our bed. The words hung in the air between them. Heavy. Final. Undeniable. Nathan set down his coffee cup. He didn't try to deny it. Didn't ask what she meant. Didn't pretend to be confused. He just closed his eyes and said, I'm sorry you had to see that. Not sorry he did it. Sorry she saw it. The distinction made Sienna's blood boil, but she kept her voice calm. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart. How long? She asked. Does it matter? Yes. Nathan sighed, running his hand through his hair. 6 months. Maybe 7. I don't remember exactly when it started. 6 months. Half a year. While she'd been going to work, coming home, making dinner, planning their future. While she'd been loving him, trusting him, believing in them. He'd been with Amber for 6 months. Where is she? Sienna asked. She left about an hour ago. Sienna, call her. Tell her to come back. I want to talk to both of you. Nathan looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. He pulled out his phone and made the call. Amber, Sienna's home. She wants to talk to us? Yes, she knows. Just come back, okay? 20 minutes later, Amber walked through the door. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red. When she saw Sienna, she started crying immediately. I'm so sorry, Amber said. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. Sienna looked at her former best friend. They'd known each other for 12 years. She thought she knew Amber better than anyone. But looking at her now, Sienna realized she'd never really known her at all. The real Amber was capable of sleeping with her best friend's husband for 6 months. The real Amber was a stranger. Sit down, Sienna said. Her voice was cold, emotionless. She'd cried all her tears yesterday. Today was about business. They sat. Nathan on one side of the table, Amber on the other, like naughty children called to the principal's office. Sienna remained standing. She needed the height advantage. Needed to feel in control of something. I want to know the truth, Sienna said. All of it. When did this start? Why did this start? What happens now? Nathan and Amber exchanged glances. Finally, Nathan spoke. It started at the company party last year. We were talking and I don't know, something just clicked. We started texting. Then meeting for coffee. Then, more. You fell in love, Sienna said flatly. Yes, Nathan admitted. I didn't plan it. I didn't want to hurt you. But I can't help how I feel. How you feel, Sienna repeated. And how do you feel, Amber? Amber was crying harder now. I love him. I know that's horrible to say. I know you hate me. I hate myself. But I love him and he loves me and we want to be together. There it was. The truth laid bare. They wanted to be together. They'd chosen each other over her. Over their marriage. Over their friendship. Over everything they'd all built together. A year ago this would have destroyed Sienna. She'd have begged Nathan to stay. She'd have fought for him. She'd have tried to win him back. But the woman who would have done that was gone, killed in the moment she'd stood in that doorway yesterday and watched her life implode. The woman standing here now was different. Harder. Colder. Smarter. Okay, Sienna said. Nathan blinked. Okay. You want to be together? Be together. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to try to save a marriage that you clearly don't want to be in. You're not. Amber looked shocked. But I thought you'd... I mean, don't you want to try counseling or... Counseling? Sienna laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Why would I go to counseling to save a marriage to a man who's been sleeping with my best friend for half a year? Why would I fight for someone who clearly doesn't want me? I do care about you, Nathan said. I never stopped caring about you. Just not enough to be faithful. Not enough to be honest. Not enough to treat me with basic respect. Nathan had the grace to look ashamed. Amber was still crying, mascara running down her face. I want a divorce, Sienna said. I want it quick and clean. I'm not going to ask for much. You can have the house. You can have the furniture. You can have whatever you want. I just want out. Are you sure? Nathan asked. He looked relieved, which made Sienna's stomach turn. I'm sure. I'll get a lawyer today. We'll file the papers as soon as possible. I assume you won't contest it. No, Nathan said. I won't contest it. Good. Sienna turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Amber, we're done. Forever. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't try to explain or apologize or make yourself feel better. We're not friends. We're not anything. You're dead to me. Both of you are. She walked out before either of them could respond. Before the tears she'd been holding back could fall. Before the mask of calm control could slip. In her car, Sienna allowed herself 30 seconds of emotion. 30 seconds to cry, to scream into her hands, to feel the full weight of what had just happened. Then she wiped her eyes, started the engine, and drove to Beverly's office. The lawyer was surprised to see her. I thought you were coming Monday? Change of plans, Sienna said. I need to claim the lottery today. And I need a divorce lawyer. The best one you know. Beverly's eyes widened. What happened? Sienna told her everything. Beverly listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker by the minute. They'd spent hours going over investment strategies, tax implications, charitable giving options. Sienna's head had spun with information, but Timothy had been patient, explaining everything in simple terms. You can live very comfortably on the interest alone, Timothy told her. We're talking several $1,000,000 a year in income without ever touching the principal. You never have to work again if you don't want to. But Sienna did want to work. Just not at her old job. She'd submitted her resignation the day after the confrontation, effective immediately. Her boss had been shocked. She'd been one of their top performers, up for a promotion. But Sienna had been firm. She'd cited personal reasons and left it at that. Now, sitting in her new apartment with her coffee and her laptop, Sienna researched business opportunities. She'd always wanted to start her own marketing consulting firm. Now she could. She could be choosy about clients, take only the projects that interested her, charge whatever she wanted. But beyond that, she wanted to do something meaningful. Beverly had mentioned during one of their meetings that many lottery winners found purpose in philanthropy. Sienna had been thinking about that. What cause spoke to her? What need could she meet? The answer came to her while scrolling through news articles. A local women's shelter was closing due to lack of funding. The shelter had provided housing, counseling, and job training for women leaving abusive situations. But donations had dried up, and the building needed expensive repairs the shelter couldn't afford. Sienna called the shelter's director, a woman named Patricia. "I'd like to make a donation," Sienna said. "How much do you need to stay open?" Patricia had laughed, not unkindly. "More than anyone has, I'm afraid. We need about $500,000 to fix the building and another $500,000 to operate for the next 2 years while we rebuild our donor base." "What if I gave you $1 million?" Sienna asked. Silence on the other end. "Then, is this a joke?" "No joke. I'd like to make an anonymous donation of $1 million to your shelter. I can have my lawyer contact you today to set it up." Patricia had started crying on the phone. "I don't know who you are, but you're an angel. You're literally saving lives." After hanging up, Sienna had felt something shift in her chest. Something that felt almost like happiness. She couldn't save her marriage. Couldn't fix her friendship. Couldn't undo the betrayal. But she could do this. She could help women who needed it. Women who were leaving bad situations and starting over just like her. She called Beverly. "I want to set up a foundation. For women starting over. Women leaving difficult relationships or situations. I want to provide housing assistance, job training, counseling, legal help. Whatever they need." "How much are you thinking of funding it with?" Beverly asked. $10 million to start. More later if needed." Beverly had been quiet for a moment. "You're serious?" "Completely serious." "Then let's do it. I'll start the paperwork today." The foundation took shape over the next few weeks. Sienna named it New Beginnings Foundation, simple but meaningful. She hired a small staff to run it, people with experience in social work and nonprofit management. She kept her own involvement anonymous, working through Beverly and the LLC. The foundation's first project was saving the women's shelter. Then they moved on to partnering with job training programs, funding legal aid for women going through divorces, providing emergency housing assistance. Within a month they'd helped 50 women. Within 2 months, over 100. Sienna threw herself into the work. She met with staff regularly, reviewed applications, suggested new programs. It gave her purpose. Gave her a reason to get up in the morning beyond just escaping Nathan and Amber. She also started taking care of herself in ways she'd neglected during her marriage. She joined a gym, started running in the mornings, took up yoga. She got a new haircut, updated her wardrobe, experimented with makeup tutorials online. She wasn't trying to look good for anyone else. She was doing it for herself. For the woman she was becoming. Her phone occasionally buzzed with messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Amber had tried reaching out from different numbers, but Sienna blocked each one. Once, she'd listened to a voicemail before deleting it. Amber's voice had been thick with tears. "Please just let me explain. Please forgive me. I miss you so much." But there was nothing to explain and nothing to forgive. Understanding wouldn't undo the betrayal. Forgiveness wouldn't heal the wound. The only thing that would help was distance and time and building something better than what she'd lost. "You didn't tell them about the lottery?" Beverly asked when Sienna finished. "No." "Good. Don't. The divorce will be finalized before they ever find out. Your winnings occurred during the marriage, which technically means they'd be marital property in most states. But if he agrees to a quick divorce and doesn't ask questions, you can keep it all." "He won't ask questions," Sienna said with certainty. "He's too guilty and too eager to be with Amber. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him." Beverly nodded. "I have a colleague who handles divorces. She's ruthless when she needs to be, but fair. I'll call her right now." 2 hours later, Sienna had officially claimed her lottery winnings. The check was made out to her LLC. The money would be in the account within a week. She'd also met with the divorce lawyer Monica, who'd promised to have papers drawn up by Monday. "Make it fast," Sienna had told Monica. "I don't want anything from him. No alimony. No division of assets beyond what I brought into the marriage. I just want to be free." "Are you sure?" Monica had asked. "You're entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage." "I'm sure. I have my own money." That was the understatement of the century, but Monica didn't need to know the details. Driving back to the hotel, Sienna felt lighter than she had in months. Maybe years. She'd been carrying the weight of a failing marriage without even realizing it. All those times Nathan had been distant. All those canceled plans. All those nights he'd stayed late at work. She'd blamed herself, thought she wasn't interesting enough, pretty enough, good enough. But it hadn't been her fault. It had been his choice. his failure, his betrayal. And now it was his problem. He and Amber could have each other. They could deal with the reality of their relationship without the excitement of sneaking around. They could face their guilt and their families and their friends explaining how they got together. Sienna wouldn't be there to see it. She'd be too busy building her new life. A life they'd never touch. A life they'd never benefit from. A life that would be entirely, completely, beautifully hers. That night, she treated herself to an expensive dinner at the hotel restaurant. She ordered wine she'd never have normally bought. She ate dessert. She smiled at the waiter and left a generous tip. Tomorrow she'd start looking for an apartment. Something downtown with a view. Somewhere that had never held memories of Nathan. Somewhere that would be hers alone. She'd also start planning what to do with the money. Beyond the basics of investing and saving, she wanted to do something meaningful. Something that mattered. Something that would make a difference. But tonight, she'd just sit with this feeling. This strange, unfamiliar feeling that she slowly recognized as relief. The marriage was over. The friendship was over. The lies were over. Everything else was just beginning. By the end of the week, Sienna had moved into a luxury apartment downtown. It was on the 20th floor of a new building with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. The rent was more than her and Nathan's mortgage had been, but money wasn't an issue anymore. She'd paid for 6 months up front in cash, enjoying the look on the leasing agent's face when she'd pulled out the cashier's check. The apartment came furnished, which was perfect. She didn't want any of the furniture from the house. Didn't want anything that carried memories of her old life. She went to the house one afternoon while Nathan was at work and packed up only her personal belongings. Clothes, books, photos from before her marriage, her grandmother's jewelry. Everything else could stay. She left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note. "You'll have the papers by Monday. Sign them and this will all be over quickly." True to Monica's word, the divorce papers were delivered to Nathan on Monday morning. Sienna waited, half expecting him to call, to question why she wasn't asking for anything, to suspect something was up. But the papers came back signed that same afternoon. He hadn't even read them carefully, Monica said. Just signed and returned them with his own lawyer's signature. "He must really want out," Monica observed. "He really wants to be with her," Sienna corrected. "Without me complicating things. The divorce would be final in 60 days. A 2-month waiting period mandated by the state. 2 months and she'd be officially free. Nathan would have the house, his car, his business. She'd have her freedom, her dignity, and $500 million he'd never know about." Sienna threw herself into building her new life. She hired the financial advisor Beverly had recommended, a man named Timothy who'd been managing wealth for 20 years. He was calm, practical, and didn't bat an eye at the size of her winnings. "First things first," Timothy said at their initial meeting. "We secure the principal. You'll want to invest conservatively with the bulk of it. Bonds, index funds, some real estate. Nothing risky. You want this money to last forever and then some." Nathan had tried to contact her too once. An email about some mail that had come to the house. She'd had her lawyer handle it. She never wanted to speak to him again. Through mutual acquaintances, she'd heard that Nathan and Amber had officially moved in together. That they were telling people they'd fallen in love and couldn't help themselves. That some people were supportive and others were horrified. Sienna didn't care either way. Their lives were no longer her concern. She'd also heard, with some satisfaction, that not everything was perfect in paradise. Nathan's business had lost a few clients, people who'd been friends with Sienna and disapproved of how the marriage ended. Amber had been let go from her job, though the official reason was downsizing. But Sienna suspected the truth was that Amber's boss, a woman Sienna had met several times, had been disgusted by Amber's behavior. But Sienna didn't dwell on their problems. She was too busy building her own success. She'd officially launched her consulting firm, taking on 2 clients to start. Both were small businesses owned by women, and Sienna gave them rates they could afford, making up the difference from her own pocket. She didn't need the money. She needed the purpose. One evening, about 6 weeks after the discovery, Sienna was sitting on her balcony watching the sunset. The city stretched out below her, lights beginning to twinkle as darkness fell. She had a glass of wine in her hand, music playing softly from inside. And she realized something. She was happy. Not deliriously, overwhelmingly happy. But content. Peaceful. Satisfied. She liked her apartment. She liked her work. She liked the person she was becoming. The betrayal still hurt. Probably always would, at least a little. But it didn't define her anymore. She'd survived it. She'd walked away. She'd built something new. Nathan and Amber had taken her marriage and her friendship. But they'd also given her the push she'd needed to become someone better. Someone stronger. Someone who didn't need their validation or their presence to be complete. Her phone rang. Teresa, her younger sister. Sienna had been meaning to call her. "Hey, stranger," Teresa said when Sienna answered. "I heard about the divorce. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," Sienna said and meant it. "I'm good. Really good." "You sound different," Teresa observed. "I am different. In a good way. How's school?" Teresa sighed. "Hard. Really hard. And expensive. I'm starting to think I should take a semester off to save more money." Sienna smiled. "Don't do that. How much do you need?" "I can't ask you for." "You're not asking. I'm offering." "How much for the whole program?" "Sienna, it's like $80,000. "I can't." "Send me your account information. I'll wire it tomorrow." "What? How do you have that kind of money?" "Let's just say I've come into some unexpected resources." "Please, Teresa. Let me do this. You're my sister. I want to help." Teresa had cried. Thanked her a million times. Promised to pay her back. Sienna had assured her that wasn't necessary. Family helped family. That's what real love looked like. After hanging up, Sienna had felt that shift in her chest again. That warm, satisfying feeling of making a difference. Of using her resources for good. Of being the person she'd always wanted to be. Nathan and Amber thought they'd won. Thought they'd gotten what they wanted. But they had no idea what they'd actually done. They'd freed her. Released her from a marriage that had been dying anyway. Given her the opportunity to become someone better than she'd been. And the best part? They'd never know. Never understand what they'd lost. Never realize that while they were dealing with the messy reality of their affair-turned relationship, she was living her best life with more money than they'd ever see. The divorce would be final in 2 more weeks. And then Sienna would be truly free. Ready for whatever came next. Ready to embrace a future that was entirely her own. The day the divorce was finalized, Sienna treated herself to a spa day. She got a massage, a facial, her nails done in a bright red that made her feel bold and confident. She'd worn black and neutral tones throughout her marriage because Nathan had said they were. She'd spent the afternoon at her foundation's office, meeting with the staff and reviewing new grant applications. The foundation had grown faster than she'd anticipated. Word had spread through social service networks that there was a new organization helping women, and applications were flooding in. "We're going to need to expand," Patricia told her. Patricia had left the women's shelter to become the foundation's executive director, a role she was born for. "We have enough applications to use up our entire annual budget in 3 months. Then we'll increase the budget," Sienna said simply. "How much do you need?" Patricia had looked stunned. In the nonprofit world, most organizations scraped by, constantly worried about funding. Having someone ask how much you needed, ready to provide it, was unheard of. "Are you sure?" Patricia asked. "I don't want to take advantage." "You're not. This is what I want to do with my resources. Help as many women as we can. So tell me what you need and let's make it happen." They'd spent the next hour planning an expansion. More staff, more programs, partnerships with other organizations. By the end of the meeting, the foundation's budget had tripled, and Patricia was crying happy tears. "I don't know who you are or why you're doing this," Patricia said. "But thank you. You're changing lives. You're saving lives." Sienna had hugged her, feeling that warm glow in her chest again. This was what money was for. Not fancy cars or designer clothes or showing off. This, making a real difference. That evening, she'd met Timothy for dinner to review her investment portfolio. Everything was performing well, growing steadily. She had more money than she'd started with, which seemed impossible. "That's the magic of compound interest," Timothy explained. "Your money is making money. And as long as we're smart about it, it'll keep growing. You'll be able to support yourself and your causes indefinitely." "What about starting more businesses?" Sienna asked. "I've been thinking about expanding my consulting firm, maybe opening an actual office, hiring staff." "Do you enjoy the work?" Timothy asked. "I love it. I'm only taking on a few clients right now, but I'd love to build something bigger. Help more small businesses succeed." "Then do it. You have the resources. Why not?" "Why not indeed." Over the next month, Sienna had hired a real estate agent and found the perfect office space. It was in a renovated building downtown with exposed brick walls and huge windows. She'd signed a 3-year lease, then set about making it her own. She'd hired 3 employees to start. All women, all with marketing experience, all grateful for the opportunity. Sienna paid them well above market rate, offered full benefits, and maintained a flexible work environment. She remembered what it was like to feel undervalued at work. Her employees would never feel that way. The consulting firm officially opened 2 months after her divorce was final. They threw a small party, invited their first clients, networked with other local businesses. Sienna had given a short speech about their mission: to help small businesses, especially those owned by women and minorities, succeed through strategic marketing and authentic branding. The local business journal had covered the opening. Sienna's photo had run with the article, a professional headshot taken specifically for the occasion. She'd looked confident, successful, happy. She barely recognized herself. That night, she'd received a text from an unknown number. "Saw your article. Congratulations on the business." It was Nathan. She deleted it without responding and blocked the number. She'd also received a friend request on social media from Amber. Deleted and blocked. They were part of her past. They'd stay there. Instead, Sienna had started building new friendships. She'd met Christina at the gym, and they'd bonded over their shared love of terrible reality TV and good wine. Christina was a nurse, recently divorced herself, with 2 kids and a wicked sense of humor. "My ex cheated too," Christina had confided over drinks one night. "With his dental hygienist. So predictable it's almost funny." "How did you get through it?" Sienna had asked. "Therapy. Tom. Recognizing that his choices weren't a reflection of my worth. And honestly, success. I'm doing better now than I ever did with him. Best revenge is living well, right?" Sienna had clinked her glass against Christina's. "I'll drink to that." She'd also reconnected with Teresa, who was thriving in nursing school thanks to Sienna's financial help. They'd started having weekly video calls, something they'd never done before. Sienna had realized how much she'd neglected her family during her marriage, too focused on Nathan and their life together. "You seem different," Teresa had observed during one of their calls. "Happier. More you." "I feel more like myself than I have in years," Sienna had admitted. "It's like I'd been playing a role, trying to be who I thought I should be. Now I'm just me." "I like this version of you," Teresa had said. "You should visit. Come to my place, meet my friends, see what I'm up to." Sienna had done exactly that. She'd flown to Teresa's city, stayed for a long weekend, met her sister's friends and classmates. She'd felt young again, alive again. Free. While she was there, she'd also looked into opening a satellite office for the consulting firm. The city was growing, full of small businesses that could use her services. By the end of the trip, she'd found office space and hired a local manager to run it. Her business was expanding. Her foundation was helping hundreds of women. Her personal life was rich with genuine friendships and family connections. She'd started taking painting classes, something she'd always wanted to try. She planned a trip to Europe in the spring, her first international vacation in years. Life was good. Really genuinely good. One afternoon, about 4 months after the divorce, Sienna was walking through the city park near her office when she literally ran into someone. Coffee went everywhere, mostly on him, and she'd immediately started apologizing. "I am so sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going, let me buy you another?" She'd looked up to see who she'd drenched and stopped mid-sentence. He was tall, with kind eyes and an amused smile despite being covered in coffee. "It's okay," he said. "I was reading my phone. Totally my fault too." "Your shirt is ruined," Sienna said. "It's just a shirt. I have others." She'd helped him clean up as best they could, then had insisted on buying him a new coffee. They'd ended up sitting on a park bench talking. His name was Isaiah. He was an architect working on a project nearby. He was funny, easy to talk to, and didn't ask intrusive questions about her life. "What do you do?" he'd asked. "I run a marketing consulting firm. And a foundation. It's a lot, but I love it. A woman with ambition. I like that." They'd exchanged numbers. He texted the next day asking if she wanted to grab dinner. She'd said yes, surprising herself. She hadn't thought about dating since the divorce. Hadn't wanted to think about it. But Isaiah was different. He was genuine. Honest. Straightforward. He made her laugh. He listened when she talked. He didn't play games or send mixed signals. Their first date had been simple. Dinner at a small Italian restaurant, then a walk along the riverfront. He'd asked about her work, her interests, her dreams. He'd told her about his own projects, his passion for sustainable architecture, his hope to design buildings that made a positive environmental impact. "Why marketing?" he'd asked. "I like helping people tell their stories," Sienna had said. "Every business has a story, a reason they exist beyond making money. I like finding that story and helping them share it with the world." That's beautiful, Isaiah had said. Most people just think of marketing as advertising. It can be. But at its best it's about connection. About finding your people and letting them know you exist. They talked until the restaurant closed, then kept talking as he walked her to her car. At her car, he'd asked if he could see her again. She'd said yes. They'd gone on 3 more dates over the next 2 weeks. Movies, museums, a concert in the park. Easy, comfortable dates where Sienna never felt pressured or uncomfortable. Isaiah respected her boundaries, didn't push for more than she was ready to give. On their 5th date he'd finally asked about her past. You've mentioned work and your foundation, but not much about your personal life. If that's too personal, you don't have to answer. Sienna had taken a breath. I got divorced about 4 months ago. My ex-husband cheated with someone I thought was my best friend. It was messy and painful, but I'm past it now. I'm in a good place. I'm sorry that happened to you, Isaiah had said. People can be terrible. They can be. But they can also be good. You're good. He'd smiled at that. I try to be. Full disclosure, I was married once too. We divorced 3 years ago. We wanted different things and we were mature enough to recognize that and part ways. We're still friendly. She's remarried now, seems happy. No cheating? Sienna had asked. No cheating. Just grew apart. Sometimes that happens. Sienna had appreciated his honesty. Are you looking for something serious? Because I need to be upfront. I'm not ready to jump into anything heavy. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of my marriage. I'm looking for something real, Isaiah had said. Whether that's serious or casual or somewhere in between, I don't know. But I like you. I like spending time with you. Can we just see where it goes? I'd like that, Sienna had said. They'd gone slow, taking their time getting to know each other. Isaiah had no idea about the lottery money. He knew she ran a successful business and a foundation, but that was it. He never asked about her finances, never expected her to pay for dates, never showed any interest in her money. He liked her. The person she was. Not what she had. It was refreshing. Reassuring. Real. 3 months into dating, Isaiah had met Christina and Teresa. Both had given him their approval. He's good for you, Christina had said. You're happy around him. I am, Sienna had admitted. I wasn't looking for this, but I'm glad I found it. You deserve good things, Teresa had said. After everything that happened, you deserve someone who treats you right. Sienna had agreed. She did deserve good things. She'd spent too long settling for less, for a marriage that had been dying long before Nathan's affair. With Isaiah, everything felt easy. Natural. Right. But she still wasn't ready to tell him about the lottery. That was a secret she kept close, known only to Beverly, Timothy, and a few trusted staff members. She'd tell Isaiah eventually when she was sure about them. But for now she enjoyed being valued for herself, not her bank account. Life had become richer, fuller, more vibrant than she'd ever imagined. The woman she'd been during her marriage felt like a stranger. That Sienna had been small, quiet, accommodating. She dimmed her light to make Nathan shine brighter. The Sienna, the new Sienna, shone on her own. She took up space. She spoke her mind. She pursued her dreams without apology. She was building an empire, helping people, falling in love with her life again. And through it all, Nathan and Amber had no idea. No idea about the money. No idea about her success. No idea that while they'd thought they were winning by being together, she'd been building something far better than anything they'd ever have. The best part of her life was still ahead. And she'd built it all herself. Nathan stared at the eviction notice taped to the apartment door. 30 days to vacate. They were being kicked out. Again. This was the 3rd place in 6 months. This is ridiculous, Amber said from behind him. She was still in her pajamas at 2 in the afternoon, something that had become normal lately. We paid rent. We paid half of rent, Nathan corrected. 3 weeks late. And this is the 3rd time we've been late. So we'll find another place. Nathan turned to look at her. Really look at her. When had she stopped trying? Her hair was unwashed, pulled into a messy knot. She wasn't wearing makeup. She'd gained weight, not that he'd ever say that out loud. But the girl he'd fallen for, the one who'd been so put together and exciting, had been replaced by this woman who seemed content to let life happen to her. Or maybe she'd always been this way and he'd just been too caught up in the affair to notice. When they'd been sneaking around, every moment together had felt electric. Forbidden. Exciting. Now they were just 2 people sharing an apartment, dealing with bills and responsibilities and the mundane reality of everyday life. It turned out that affair excitement didn't translate into relationship compatibility. We can't afford another place, Nathan said, walking into the apartment. We can barely afford this one. Then you need to get more clients. I'm trying. But word's gotten around about people don't want to work with a guy who cheated on his wife with her best friend. Amber flinched. She hated when he said it so bluntly. She preferred to think of their relationship as a love story, two people who couldn't fight their feelings. Nathan had thought that too at first. Now he just saw it for what it was. A mistake that had cost him everything. His business had tanked after the divorce. 3 of his biggest clients had dropped him immediately, citing company policy changes, but really meaning they'd been friends with Sienna and thought he was trash. Other clients had followed. Word spread fast in their city, and nobody wanted to be associated with the guy who'd betrayed his wife. He tried to rebuild, taking on smaller clients, lowering his rates. But it wasn't enough. The bills kept coming. The mortgage on the house had been too much to handle alone, so he'd had to sell it. They'd made a small profit, but that money was long gone, burned through on deposits for apartments, late fees, and basic survival. Amber wasn't helping financially. She'd lost her job shortly after they'd gotten together, and she hadn't found another one. She claimed she was looking, but Nathan had his doubts. She spent most days on the couch, scrolling through social media, occasionally sending out a resume. Maybe you should take anything, Nathan said, trying to keep his voice neutral. Even if it's not perfect. Just to help with bills. I'm not working retail, Amber snapped. I have a degree. I deserve better than minimum wage. Right now, minimum wage would really help. They fought about money constantly. About jobs, bills, whose fault everything was. The passion that had driven their affair had curdled into resentment. Nathan found himself thinking about Sienna more than he cared to admit. She'd never been like this. She'd always pulled her weight, always been responsible, always been a partner. He'd thrown that away for what? For Amber, who now made him feel trapped and suffocated. For excitement that had lasted all of 3 months before reality set in. I saw something about Sienna the other day, Amber said, scrolling through her phone. She opened a business. Some consulting firm. Nathan didn't want to hear about Sienna. Hearing about her was like poking a wound that wouldn't heal. Good for her. Doesn't it bother you? That she's doing so well? Why would it bother me? I'm the one who left her. Exactly. And she doesn't seem to care. She just moved on with her life like we never mattered. Nathan bit back the response he wanted to give, that they didn't matter, not anymore, and that was entirely their fault. Instead, he went to the bedroom to look at their finances on his laptop. It was bad. Really bad. They had maybe $1,000 in their account, rent due in 2 weeks, and the eviction notice giving them 30 days to leave. He needed to do something. Get more work, find better clients, figure out a way to salvage his reputation. But every time he tried, he ran into the same wall. People knew what he'd done. People judged him for it. And people didn't want to do business with someone they judged. He'd reached out to Sienna once, a few weeks after the divorce was final. He'd seen an article about her new business and had sent a congratulatory text. She hadn't responded. He tried calling. She'd blocked his number. He'd sent an email. It had bounced back. She'd completely cut him out of her life. Which he probably deserved, but it still stung. 8 years together, 3 years of marriage, and she'd erased him like he'd never existed. Sometimes, late at night when Amber was asleep and he couldn't, Nathan let himself wonder what his life would be like if he'd never cheated. He'd still have Sienna. They'd still have the house. His business would still be thriving. He'd be happy. Or would he? He'd cheated for a reason. He'd been unhappy in his marriage, or at least he'd told himself he was. Looking back now, he couldn't even remember what had been so wrong. Sienna had been a good wife. A great wife, really. Supportive, kind, loving. So why had he done it? Because Amber had been exciting. Because the affair had made him feel alive. Because he'd been stupid and selfish and thought with everything except his brain. And now he was paying for it. They both were. We should reach out to Sienna, Amber said, coming into the bedroom. Ask her for help. Nathan laughed bitterly. You think she'd help us? After what we did? She's doing well. She could spare a little to help old friends. We're not her friends. We betrayed her. Why would she help us? Because she's a good person. Better than us, apparently. That was true. Sienna was a better person. Which made what they'd done to her even worse. Nathan had thrown away a good woman for a bad situation, and now he was stuck in it. I'm not asking her for help, Nathan said firmly. I'd rather struggle than give her the satisfaction of knowing we're desperate. But they were desperate. More desperate than Nathan wanted to admit. And it was only going to get worse unless something changed. Fast. Amber left the room, probably to go back to the couch and her phone. Nathan stayed at the laptop, staring at their bank balance, trying to figure out how they'd gotten here. Trying to figure out how to get out. But every path forward seemed blocked. Every option seemed impossible. They'd burned too many bridges. Made too many enemies. Destroyed too many relationships. And for what? For a relationship that wasn't even good? For passion that had died the moment it became legal? For excitement that had turned into regret? Nathan closed the laptop and put his head in his hands. He'd made the biggest mistake of his life, and he was living with the consequences every single day. And the worst part? He couldn't even blame anyone but himself. Sienna stood in Isaiah's kitchen, helping him chop vegetables for dinner. They'd been dating for 6 months now, and she'd spent more time at his place lately, feeling comfortable and at home in a way she hadn't expected. "So I have something to tell you," Isaiah said, his tone casual but with an undercurrent of nervousness. Sienna looked up from the cutting board. "Okay. I got offered a job. A big one. Designing a sustainable housing development. It's a dream project." "That's amazing. Isaiah, congratulations." "There's a catch. It's in California. I'd have to relocate for at least a year, maybe 2. Sienna's stomach dropped. She just found something good and now it was being taken away. But she forced a smile. "When would you leave?" 3 months. "But Sienna, I need to know, is this going somewhere? You and me? Because if it is, if you think it could be serious, I want you to come with me." She set down the knife. "You want me to move to California with you? I know it's a lot to ask. I know you have your business and your foundation here. But I'm falling for you. Art. And I don't want to lose what we have because of distance." "I'm falling for you too," Sienna admitted. "But I need time to think about this. It's not just about us. It's about my work, my commitments here." "I understand. Take your time. Just think about it." That night, Sienna lay in bed in her own apartment, staring at the ceiling. Isaiah wanted her to move to California. A year ago, she'd have said no immediately. She'd have put her own dreams second, stayed where she was comfortable, played it safe. But she wasn't that person anymore. She'd built a business that could run remotely. She'd established a foundation with an amazing staff who could handle things in her absence. She had resources that made relocation easy. She had freedom. The question wasn't whether she could go. It was whether she wanted to. And the answer surprised her. Yes, she wanted to. Not because Isaiah was asking, but because she wanted the adventure. Wanted to see what life looked like in a new city. Wanted to take a risk on something that felt right. Over the next week, she worked out the logistics. Her consulting firm could easily operate with her working remotely. Christina, one of her original hires, was more than capable of managing the day-to-day operations. The foundation had Patricia and her excellent staff. Sienna could stay involved through video calls and occasional trips back. And honestly, opening a West Coast branch of both the consulting firm and the foundation could be good for growth. She could expand her reach, help more people, build something even bigger than what she'd started. She told Isaiah yes over dinner the following weekend. "I'll come with you. But I want to be clear. I'm not following you. I'm choosing this. For me, for us, for the opportunities it presents." Isaiah had grinned. "I wouldn't have it any other way. You're not the kind of woman who follows anyone. You lead." They'd spent the next 3 months preparing for the move. Sienna set up remote work systems, hired additional staff, trained Christina and Patricia for their expanded roles. She put her apartment on the market and started looking for a place in California. She also finally told Isaiah about the lottery. They were sitting on his balcony one evening, drinking wine and watching the sunset, when she said, "There's something I need to tell you. Something big." "Okay," he said, looking concerned. "Are you sick? Is something wrong?" "No, nothing like that. But I haven't been completely honest with you about my financial situation." She told him everything. The lottery win, the timing with her divorce, her decision to keep it secret, her investments and foundation funding. She'd watched his face carefully, looking for signs of greed or sudden change in how he treated her. But Isaiah had just listened. When she finished, he'd been quiet for a moment. Then he'd said, "That's why you're always so generous. Why you funded your foundation so heavily. Why you never seemed worried about money." "Yes. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I needed to know you liked me for me. I do like you for you. The money doesn't change that. Although it does explain how you can afford to relocate so easily. I was a little worried about asking you to give up your life here. I'm not giving anything up. I'm adding to my life. California, new opportunities. It's all gain, no loss." Isaiah had pulled her close. "You're amazing, you know that? Most people would have taken that money and just stopped working. But you're using it to build things, help people, make a difference. What else would I do with it? Buy a yacht? I get seasick. They'd laughed and everything had felt easy again. Natural. Right. He knew her secret now, and it hadn't changed anything between them. If anything, they'd grown closer. Teresa had been supportive of the move too. You deserve an adventure. And Isaiah seems great. Just promise you'll visit. I promise. And you're always welcome in California. We'll have a guest room. Christina had been harder to convince. You're really leaving? I'm not leaving. I'm relocating. There's a difference. And you'll be running things here, which means a promotion and a raise. It's not about the money. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. But we'll video call constantly. And I'll be back regularly. Plus, this gives us the opportunity to expand. We can open a California office, double our client base, do twice the good. Christina had finally agreed. Fine. But if you don't visit at least once a month, I'm flying out there and dragging you back. The move happened in late summer. Sienna and Isaiah had found a beautiful house in the hills, with huge windows and a view of the ocean. It was bigger than Sienna's apartment had been, with room for a home office and a guest room for visitors. Sienna had set up her workspace overlooking the water. Every morning she'd sit at her desk with coffee, reviewing client proposals and foundation reports while watching sailboats drift across the bay. It was peaceful. Inspiring. Perfect. She'd also started working with local organizations in California, expanding her foundation's reach. There were so many women who needed help, and she had the resources to provide it. Within 2 months, they'd helped 30 California women with housing, job training, and legal assistance. Isaiah's project was going well. He'd come home excited every day, telling her about sustainable building techniques and environmental impact. She'd listen, proud of his passion, his commitment to making a difference in his own way. They'd settled into a comfortable routine. Morning coffee together, work during the day, dinner together in the evening, weekends exploring their new city. Sometimes Christina or Teresa would visit, and they'd play tourist, seeing sights and trying new restaurants. Life was good. Better than good. Life was exactly what Sienna had built it to be. Full of purpose, love, adventure, and possibility. One evening, she and Isaiah were walking on the beach near their house when he stopped and turned to her. I love you, he said. I know we've only been together for 9 months and maybe it's too soon, but I love you. You're the most amazing woman I've ever met. I love you too, Sienna said and meant it. You make me want to be brave. Want to take chances. Want to build a life that's bigger than just surviving. He'd kissed her as the sun set over the ocean, and Sienna had thought about how far she'd come from that day she'd stood in her bedroom doorway, watching her life fall apart. That moment had felt like the end of everything. But it had actually been the beginning. The beginning of discovering who she really was. The beginning of building something meaningful. The beginning of finding someone who loved her for herself, not for convenience or comfort or habit. She'd lost a husband who hadn't valued her and a friend who'd betrayed her. But she'd gained herself. And that was worth more than any relationship she'd sacrificed. Nathan sat in his car outside the unemployment office, trying to work up the courage to go inside. His business had finally collapsed completely 3 months ago. He'd lost his last client, couldn't make rent on his office space, and had to shut everything down. Now he was living off unemployment benefits and whatever odd jobs he could pick up. The apartment he shared with Amber was tiny, cheap, in a bad neighborhood. They'd moved there after being evicted from the last place, and it was all they could afford. 1 bedroom, a kitchen the size of a closet, and paper-thin walls that broadcast their neighbors' fights. Amber had finally gotten a job at a call center. She hated it, complained about it constantly, but at least it was income. Between her minimum wage and his unemployment, they could barely cover rent and food. Anything extra, like car repairs or medical bills, sent them into crisis mode. Nathan's phone rang. Amber. He answered reluctantly. Yeah. We got another shut-off notice. Electric company. If we don't pay by Friday, they're cutting the power. How much? $300. Nathan closed his eyes. They didn't have $300. They had maybe $50 until Amber's next paycheck. I'll figure something out. How? You don't have a job. I'm trying, Amber. I'm doing everything I can. Maybe you should try harder. He hung up before he said something he'd regret. Their relationship had devolved into constant fighting. Every conversation became an argument about money, about whose fault their situation was, about the past and the choices they'd made. Sometimes Nathan wondered why they were still together. They made each other miserable. But they were also stuck with each other. Neither could afford to live alone. And maybe some part of him felt like he deserved this suffering. This was his punishment for what he'd done to Sienna. He'd heard through the grapevine that Sienna had moved to California. With a boyfriend. Some architect. They'd bought a house together, supposedly. She was doing well, expanding her business, living her best life. Meanwhile, Nathan was sitting in a car outside the unemployment office, trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. The contrast was stark. Painful. Undeniable. He'd destroyed a good life for this. He'd had everything. A wife who loved him, a house, a successful business, financial stability. And he'd thrown it all away for an affair that had seemed so exciting at the time. Now the excitement was gone and all that was left was regret. Deep, aching, constant regret. Nathan finally went into the unemployment office, sat through the required meeting with a counselor, filled out job applications on the public computers. It was humiliating. He had a business degree. He'd run his own firm. Now he was applying for entry-level positions and getting rejected because he was overqualified. When he got home, Amber was on the couch in her call center uniform, crying. "What happened?" he asked, though he wasn't sure he had the energy to deal with another crisis. "I got written up at work. 3rd time this month. If I get one more, I'm fired." "What did you get written up for?" "Being late. Traffic was bad and I couldn't help it." Nathan bit back the response that traffic was always bad, and she knew what time she needed to leave. Fighting wouldn't help. Just try to get there on time. We can't lose that income. "Don't you think I know that?" Amber snapped. "Don't you think I hate that job? Hate this apartment? Hate this life? We all hate this life. But it's the life we have. Because you couldn't keep your business going. Because you let Sienna's friends ruin your reputation. My reputation ruined itself when I cheated on my wife with her best friend. That's not on Sienna. That's on us. On me." Amber looked away. She hated when he pointed out the truth of their situation. She preferred to blame external factors. The economy, bad luck, other people's judgments. But the reality was simple. They'd made bad choices and they were living with the consequences. That night, Nathan lay awake in bed, listening to Amber's breathing beside him. He thought about Sienna. Wondered what she was doing right now. Probably something amazing knowing her. She'd always been ambitious, driven, capable. He dimmed that during their marriage he realized now. Made her focus on supporting his dreams instead of pursuing her own. And the second she'd been free of him, she'd flourished. Built businesses, started a foundation, found love again. She'd thrived. While he'd crashed and burned. The worst part was knowing he had no one to blame but himself. He'd made every choice that led him here. He'd chosen to cheat. Chosen to leave Sienna. Chosen Amber. Chosen to ignore the warning signs that his business was failing. Chosen to bury his head in the sand instead of facing problems head-on. And now he was stuck in the life he'd built. A life he hated. With a partner who resented him. In a financial situation that seemed to get worse by the day. With no clear path forward. He'd lost everything. And unlike Sienna, he had no lottery winnings to fall back on. No secret fortune to cushion his fall. Just debt, struggle, and the knowledge that he'd done this to himself. Justice, he supposed. Though it felt more like torture. Nathan was scrolling through news websites, procrastinating on job applications when he saw the headline, "Anonymous Donor Contributes $10 million to Women's Causes." The article detailed massive donations to women's shelters, job training programs, and legal aid societies across multiple states. The donations had come from something called New Beginnings Foundation. Nathan clicked through to the foundation's website. The About Us page was vague about the founder, mentioning only that they were a private individual committed to helping women rebuild their lives. Something about it nagged at Nathan. New beginnings. That phrase sounded familiar. Where had he heard it before? Then it clicked. Sienna had mentioned wanting to help women restart their lives. She'd volunteered at a women's shelter throughout their marriage. She'd always talked about wanting to do more, wishing she had the resources to make a real difference. But that was crazy. Sienna didn't have $10 million to donate. She'd had a regular job, same as him. They'd lived a comfortable middle-class life, but nothing extravagant. How could she afford this? Unless... Nathan's mind raced. Sienna had left their marriage asking for nothing. No alimony, no division of assets, nothing. At the time he'd been relieved. Guilty but relieved. He hadn't questioned it. Hadn't wondered why she'd been so willing to walk away empty-handed. What if there was a reason? What if she'd had money he didn't know about? He searched for Sienna's consulting firm. The website showed multiple offices, high-profile clients, success stories. This wasn't a small startup. This was a thriving business. How had she funded it? Nathan called Amber into the room. Look at this, he said, showing her the articles. So, some rich person is donating money. Good for them. I think it's Sienna. Amber rolled her eyes. Sienna doesn't have $10 million. But what if she does? What if she came into money somehow and didn't tell me? That would explain everything. Why she didn't fight the divorce. Why she didn't ask for anything. Why she's been so successful. You sound crazy. Where would Sienna get that kind of money? I don't know. Inheritance? Lottery? I have to find out. Nathan became obsessed. He spent hours researching, trying to find information about New Beginnings Foundation's founder. He called Sienna's old workplace, pretending to be a potential client, trying to get information. He even drove by her old haunts, hoping to run into someone who might know something. Finally, he got a break. He ran into one of Sienna's old co-workers at a coffee shop. The woman, Melissa, had been friendly with Sienna during their marriage. Nathan, Melissa said coolly when she saw him. I heard about the divorce. Yeah, it's been rough. Listen, I'm trying to get in touch with Sienna. We have some financial things to sort out from the divorce. Do you know how I can reach her? Melissa looked skeptical. I thought the divorce was finalized months ago. It is, but something came up. It's important. Do you have her new number? I don't feel comfortable giving out her information, but I can tell you she's doing great. Really thriving. I saw her last month when she was in town for foundation business. Foundation business? Melissa's eyes widened slightly. I shouldn't have said that. Look, if you need to talk to Sienna, go through her lawyer. She left before Nathan could ask more questions. But it was enough. Sienna was involved with a foundation. Was it New Beginnings? It had to be. Nathan went home and started digging deeper. He found the LLC that owned New Beginnings Foundation. The owner's name was redacted in public records, but the LLC had been formed right around the time of their divorce. He paid for a background check service, hoping to find more information. The report showed that the LLC had been set up by Beverly Miller, an attorney in Atlanta. Beverly Miller, who specialized in lottery winners. Lottery winners. The pieces fell into place with stunning clarity. Sienna had been at a conference in Atlanta. She'd come home early and found him with Amber. She'd left and asked for a quick divorce, wanting nothing. What if she'd won the lottery while in Atlanta? What if she'd known about the money when she found them together? What if she'd kept it secret to make sure he got nothing in the divorce? Nathan's hands shook as the realization hit him. Sienna had won the lottery. She'd been rich when she discovered his affair. She could have taken him to court, fought for half of the winnings. But instead, she'd left quietly, kept her secret, and walked away with everything. While he and Amber had struggled, Sienna had been living like a queen. While they'd been evicted and scrambling for rent money, she'd been building businesses and funding foundations. While they'd been fighting about every dollar, she'd had millions. No, not millions. He did more searching, finding news articles about a big Mega Millions win in Atlanta around that time. $500 million. Before taxes, but still. Even after taxes, she'd have walked away with hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And he'd lost access to it because he couldn't keep it in his pants. Nathan felt sick. Physically ill. He ran to the bathroom and threw up. When he came back out, Amber was reading his computer screen. Is this real? She whispered. Did Sienna really win the lottery? Right before I left her. Right before she found us together. So when you divorced her, she already had the money. She knew about it. She kept it secret and let me divorce her for nothing. They stared at each other, the magnitude of what they'd lost hitting them simultaneously. They could have had everything. Financial security, comfort, luxury. Instead they had nothing. Because of a choice Nathan had made. A choice that had seemed so right at the time and now seemed like the stupidest decision anyone had ever made. We have to talk to her, Amber said. Explain. Apologize. Ask for help. She won't see us. Then we'll make her see us. We'll go to her office. Show up at her house. We were important to her once. She has to care at least a little. Nathan knew it was useless. Sienna had blocked them, cut them out, moved on completely. She didn't want anything to do with them. And she shouldn't. They'd betrayed her in the worst possible way. But desperation made people do irrational things. And Nathan was nothing if not desperate. 1 year after the divorce, Sienna stood in front of a mirror in a bridal boutique, looking at herself in a wedding dress. It was simple, elegant, perfect. Isaiah had proposed 3 months ago, and they'd set a date for a small ceremony on the beach near their California home. You look beautiful, Teresa said, tears in her eyes. She was going to be Sienna's maid of honor, and she'd flown in for the dress fitting. "I feel beautiful," Sienna said. And she did. She felt happy, content, excited about the future. She'd never felt this way during her first wedding planning. With Nathan, everything had been stressful, full of compromise and trying to please everyone. This time she was doing exactly what she wanted. And it felt right. Her phone buzzed. "Beverly. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." Sienna put her on speaker. "What's going on?" "Nathan and Amber have been trying to contact you. They've shown up at your old office in town. Christina called me. They're demanding to see you, saying they know about the lottery and they need to talk." Sienna's stomach dropped. "They know?" "Apparently. Nathan figured it out somehow. I'm not sure of the details. But they're making a scene and Christina doesn't know what to do. Tell Christina to call security. Have them removed. And file a restraining order if necessary. I don't want them anywhere near me or my businesses." "Are you sure? Maybe you should talk to them, make it clear?" "I'm sure. They made their choice. They chose each other over me. Now they have to live with that choice. They don't get access to me or my money just because they're struggling." "Understood. I'll handle it." Sienna hung up and looked at herself in the mirror again. This could have ruined her day. A year ago it would have. But now she just felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. Just nothing. They were irrelevant to her life. "Everything okay?" Teresa asked. "Everything's fine. Just some ghosts from the past making noise. They'll quiet down eventually." The wedding happened on a perfect spring afternoon. 50 guests, mostly close friends and family. The ceremony was on the beach, simple and heartfelt. Isaiah had cried during his vows. Sienna had too. Her sister had given a beautiful toast at the reception. Christina had given a hilarious one, mentioning how Sienna had upgraded in every possible way. The food was delicious, the music was perfect, and Sienna had danced until her feet hurt. This was what a wedding should feel like. Joyful. Celebratory. Right. That night in their hotel room, Isaiah had held her close. "Mrs. Sienna Thompson," he said, using her new last name. "Has a nice ring to it." "It really does." Sienna smiled. She'd changed her name legally, wanting to leave every trace of her old life behind. Sienna Davis was gone. Sienna Thompson was here and she was happy. The months after the wedding were busy and fulfilling. Sienna's consulting firm continued to grow. They'd opened a third office, hired 20 employees, and were turning away potential clients because they had too much business. The foundation had helped over 1,000 women across 5 states. They'd partnered with national organizations and were considering expansion into other countries. Sienna had also started speaking engagements, sharing her story, anonymously at first but eventually publicly. She talked about rebuilding after betrayal, about finding strength in difficult times, about using resources to make a difference. She never mentioned the lottery or the specific dollar amounts, but she talked about coming into unexpected resources and choosing to use them for good. Her story resonated. Women reached out constantly, sharing their own stories of betrayal and rebuilding. Sienna answered every email she could, offering encouragement and practical advice. She'd become a voice for women starting over, and it felt meaningful in a way her old marketing job never had. Isaiah's career was flourishing too. His sustainable housing project had won awards, leading to more opportunities. They were both doing work they loved, supporting each other, building a life together that felt solid and real. Through Christina, Sienna occasionally heard updates about Nathan and Amber. They'd broken up 6 months after the wedding. Amber had moved back in with her mother. Nathan was living in a studio apartment, working 2 part-time jobs. They'd both tried reaching out to Sienna multiple times, through various people and methods, but she'd blocked every attempt. Part of Sienna felt sympathy for them. Struggling was hard. Financial instability was stressful. She knew what it was like to hurt. But a bigger part of her knew that their struggles were consequences of their own choices. She hadn't caused their problems. They had. And it wasn't her responsibility to fix them. Besides, even if she'd wanted to help, which she didn't, giving them money would be enabling their poor decisions. They needed to rebuild on their own, learn from their mistakes, become better people. Money wouldn't do that. Only they could. 2 years after the divorce, Sienna was featured in a business magazine. The article talked about her consulting firm, her foundation, and her journey from betrayal to success. They included her photo, mentioned her marriage to Isaiah, and detailed some of the foundation's accomplishments. The article was picked up by several news outlets. Suddenly, Sienna's story was everywhere. She was invited on podcasts, asked to write guest articles, contacted by publishers interested in a book deal. She did some of the interviews, carefully controlling her narrative. She talked about the betrayal without naming Nathan or Amber. She discussed finding strength and purpose after loss. She emphasized using resources, whatever they might be, to create positive change. The response was overwhelming. Women shared their own stories. Men apologized for their past behavior. People donated to her foundation. Businesses wanted to partner with her firm. She'd become a symbol of resilience and reinvention. Through one of her mutual connections, she heard that Nathan had seen the article. That he'd broken down crying when he'd realized exactly what he'd lost. That he'd tried one more time to reach out, writing a long email about regret and mistakes and asking for forgiveness. Sienna had deleted it without reading past the first line. She'd forgiven him in her own way, letting go of the anger and pain. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It didn't mean allowing toxic people back into her life. It meant releasing the hold they had on her emotions and moving forward. And she had moved forward. Far, far forward. Into a life she loved, with a man who cherished her, doing work that mattered, surrounded by genuine friends and supportive family. Nathan and Amber had thought they were winning when they got together. They'd thought they'd found true love, that their affair was justified by their feelings for each other. They'd thought Sienna would be the one left behind, broken and alone. But they'd been wrong. So incredibly wrong. Sienna had been the one who'd won. She'd won the lottery literally and figuratively. She'd built an empire. Found real love. Created a life of meaning and purpose. While they'd been stuck in the consequences of their betrayal, she'd been soaring. While they'd been regretting their choices, she'd been celebrating hers. While they'd been looking back, she'd been looking forward. 3 years after the divorce, Sienna and Isaiah were sitting on their deck, watching the sunset. She was pregnant with their first child, a daughter they'd already named Hope. Because that's what this life was, hope. Hope for the future, hope for happiness, hope that good things could come from terrible circumstances. Are you happy? Isaiah asked, his hand on her stomach. I'm more than happy, Sienna said. I'm grateful. For all of it. Even the painful parts. Because they led me here. To you, to this life, to everything I have now. No regrets. Not a single one. And it was true. She didn't regret the betrayal because it had freed her. Didn't regret the divorce because it had opened doors to a better life. Didn't regret keeping the lottery secret because it had protected her from people who would have used her. Nathan and Amber had given her the greatest gift possible, though they'd never know it. They'd released her from a life that wasn't serving her. They'd pushed her to become someone better, stronger, more authentic. They'd inadvertently made her rich beyond measure, not just financially but in every way that mattered. Her revenge hadn't been elaborate or dramatic. She hadn't schemed or plotted or tried to ruin them. Her revenge had simply been living well. Living authentically. Living joyfully. Building something they could never touch. Creating happiness they could never access, becoming someone they'd never have the privilege of knowing. They'd get to watch from afar, seeing what they'd lost, understanding the magnitude of their mistake. And Sienna would continue forward, barely thinking of them, focused on her family and her work and her beautiful, hard-won life. Because that was the best revenge of all. Not hurting the people who hurt you, but being so happy without them that their existence becomes irrelevant. Not dwelling on the past but building a future so bright it blinds them. Sienna had won. Not because she'd destroyed them, but because she'd constructed something better than anything they'd ever have. And she'd done it all without them, despite them, in spite of them. They'd thought they'd gotten away with something when they'd betrayed her. But the joke was on them. They'd actually given her everything. Freedom. Motivation. Purpose. A second chance at a life that was truly hers. As the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sienna smiled. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. And Nathan and Amber, wherever they were exactly where they belonged too. Separate from her. Irrelevant to her. Gone from her story except as the catalyst that had launched her into her real life. Her happy ending wasn't about them. It was about her. And it was perfect,